Welcome back to the Property Management Show, where we deep dive into the world of property management, marketing, and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Marie Tepman from Fourandhalf Marketing Agency. Fourandhalf is focused on giving you property managers more owner leads for your business. Whether you need help with your website, SEO, online reputation management, video or written content, website copy, paid advertising like pay-per-click, you name it, we can help you. Visit our website, fourandhalf.com, to learn more. That's fourandhalf.com. So recently, Marc Cunningham from Grace Property Management and PM Build invited me to be a guest on his podcast to talk about AI's role in property management marketing, specifically owner-focused marketing, aka marketing to help you get more owner leads. Now, I think that this topic is very relevant in the here and now. It's very top of mind for property managers because in this environment where budgets are shrinking, people aren't quite sure if AI is as good as it sounds. Maybe a bit of clarity and explanation on what you can and can't do could help you out. So I hope you'll find some useful information or insights from this episode. Without further ado, here is the recording. Hope you enjoy.
Marie Tepman, welcome to the Property Management Business Podcast.
I'm glad to be here. It's my first time.
It is, but you and I have known each other for quite a while.
Yes, we have.
We had this scheduled previously, but we had to postpone it for a very important event that you went through. Can you tell us the newest addition to your family?
Yeah, I recently had a baby boy.
Congratulations.
And it's our second kid. So life, I thought, was going to be doubly hard, but it's exponentially hard. So yeah, that was a big surprise.
And what is the name of your new baby boy?
His name's David.
His name is David. That's awesome. Congratulations. So you're a full-time mother, full-time wife, full-time worker at Fourandhalf. I shouldn't say worker. That's degrading. Director of marketing of Fourandhalf. How do you balance it all? That's a lot to balance.
Coffee, honestly, and prayers.
And you also told me before we came on to record here, you said that you asked if I would share this video with you, and I said, well, I normally don't because I'm not visually prepared. And you said, well, I put on my makeup; it's my shield. So you also use that as your.
Yes, I also do my hair and my makeup as my shield to make me feel good about myself and feel confident. It's just this extra layer that I put on.
We could just talk about, I would talk about that for an hour. I think that's interesting right there. There's probably so much to dissect, but we're not going to go there on this podcast. Nope. We're going to talk about one of the biggest challenges that all property management companies deal with, which is bringing leads into the company. Owner-client leads. That's right. Yeah. Owner leads. So let's start there. Let's make sure we differentiate. We're not talking property for rent leads. That's important to bring in as well. And maybe we'll wander into that a little bit. But primarily what we're focused on is how do we as a company drive more leads into our company? And the big buzzword, the big topic of conversation right now around that is AI. Should PM companies be using AI? How do you use AI? What are the tools? Like, it's such a massive umbrella of things you can talk about around AI, artificial intelligence, in the marketing of the PM company.
Yeah.
So before we go there, though, for people that are like, well, I'm just interested in bringing leads in to my company, and you guys do a fabulous job. You've got so much material on your website, and we're obviously going to link to all that on telling people how to generate leads. But give me like the 60-second pitch. If people like, hey, I'm not ready for AI yet, like that. Yeah. That's too granular. I just want to know how to drive more leads in this next year. What are like the 3, 4, 5 big picture things people need to be focused on before they start looking at AI?
Well, before looking at AI, you got to have your foundation in place. So leads are online, right? And so you got to figure out how you can have a good presence online. And it all starts with having a website. Like, first of all, you need to have a website for people
to have
find,
a website. Okay.
Right?
If anybody's listening and doesn't have a website, like, maybe just quit. I mean, if you haven't figured that on your own, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna lie, you can build a property management business through referrals. I've seen it happen. But if you are trying to get into property management, you want more owner leads, and you don't have referral channels that are consistently giving you leads, then the other avenue is like online. So you need your website so people can find you. And
I
then,
gotta tell you, I gotta tell you a quick story.
yeah.
You'll find this funny. This was
Uh-huh.
years ago, right? We've been around a long, long time. One of my vivid business memories is when I got a cold call one day. This was back in, I don't know, the mid late 80s, early
Mm.
90s, I don't know. And the gentleman was trying to sell us a website.
Uh-huh.
And he's telling me the benefits of having a website because we didn't have one at this point in time. And I remember saying this. I said, I just don't think a website would really be beneficial to our company. Thanks, but goodbye. Click. And I think, gosh, if we would have done it then, like we could have picked a better URL, we could have had all
Yeah.
this stuff. But I remember the day I said no, that I was like, websites, come on, this is a fad. This isn't gonna
Uh-huh. It's not gonna
it's
last.
not gonna last. Of course not.
Who's gonna go to
Yeah,
their
as long
computer and power it
right,
up and
exactly. As long as my Yellow Pages ad is a full page, I don't need a website.
uh-huh. It's
Okay.
so weird how the world is so different now, right? Like now, who knows what yellow pages are? I remember them, but ask a typical person,
My
you
kids
know.
don't. Yes, I've asked my kids about that. They don't understand. I've told them the stories how people used to throw a big book in your driveway and you would open
Uh-huh.
this book and you alphabetize. Yeah, they just scratch their head. Okay, so we got the website. I digress there. What's the next couple things?
So the next thing you should work on would be like content and reputation. And I would say reputation because when people are searching for any kind of service online, they tend to spend more time on companies that have a good track record. So even if a prospective owner finds your website, but no one else can kind of vouch for you, then you're kind of sus. You're kind of, they're kind
And,
of
and if you're
hesitant.
like me, hold on, if you're like me and you're over the age of 45, tell us what sus means because most
Sus.
people don't know what that means that are old.
Oh, sus is kind of like a suspect. Like,
Yeah,
oh, something seems fishy here. Like they have this really cool website, but they don't have any reviews. How do I know that they actually do a good job? Because in this day and age, it's so easy to have a pretty website. So if you cannot convince them to trust you, then you won't get the business. And the in this day and age, the way to gain someone's trust is through like recommendations from other people, basically, like go on Amazon, right? If you have the same product and you're choosing between different vendors, you're probably going to go with one that has more reviews. Or if you go to any vendor on like Google Maps, you're typically looking at the star ratings, right? Restaurants, right? It's risky to go to a restaurant that has absolutely no reviews. And it's the same for property management, even more so because a restaurant is just like, one meal. You could choose not to go back. But property management is a business where people are handing over the keys to their biggest asset.
mhm.
And then it's a years long, multiple year long engagement where they're basically entrusting their asset, their property, to you for years to come, and the profitability of that too, right? So it's a really big deal to be able to show that, I am trustworthy. So consider me.
So we've got the website, we've got the Google reviews, and you said something else on the trust side, which was content, putting out
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
So I want to focus on that a little bit more. And I think this is where the AI piece
Hmm.
comes in because most property managers that I talk to hear that idea of, okay, I've got to do content. And first of all, if we pull back, what do we mean? Because some PMs are like, what's content? You mean like I need to say how long I've been in business? Like define content for us on a very
So
basic level.
if we just go by the literal meaning of content, it can be anything that has like words, like on your website, right? But at Four and a Half, we think about the quality of that content and kind of like who it's intended for. And so content that would help you find or attract more owner leads for your business would be content that provides value to them. Because when you're thinking about an owner who's maybe looking for another property management company or they're just looking for solutions to their problems, like that, let's face it, right? there would be in the entire pool of property owners who may need property management services, there's a small pool of people that know property management exists as an industry, that they know, oh, roughly, like, oh, a property manager is someone who can do all these things for me. And then maybe they go on Google and they know to search for property management. But the vast majority of owners out there don't even know that there's a thing called property management, right? And it's just because in America, the property management industry isn't as advanced as, let's say, Australia, where I bet even a teenager, you ask them like, I have a property for rent, what do I do? They're like, call a property manager, right? It's just different. In America, I think, most people would say, oh, you can try managing it yourself. It's just collecting rent. Or like, oh, I have an uncle who lives, 15-minute drive from that property. He can manage it for me. And there's not this big as big market penetration as maybe other countries. In fact, when I interviewed for Fourandhalf, I just know I just knew it was a marketing company. And then I went to their website. I'm like, why do they keep talking about this thing called property management? Like, what is that industry? And I had to like Google it. And I'm like, what kind of market do they have? Like, is it big enough even to merit an entire marketing agency dedicated to this property management thing? So I was shocked. My first NARPM conference, I was like, there are this many property managers, and then to be told, no, this is just a small subset of property managers. I'm like, holy moly.
There's a lot
So
of us.
can
Yes.
you imagine property owner who just inherited a property? They have no idea about property management. And so it's important for property management companies to show up when that owner is searching online for answers to their questions, to their problems,
Answers to
right?
questions. Exactly. Yeah, because he's going to go on. But let's talk about your imaginary owner you just talked about,
Uh-huh.
right? He just inherited a property, he got a property, and he's not going to go in and type what property management company should I hire. He's going to go
Hmm.
into Google and say, how do I rent my property?
Yeah, how to find a
How
tenant.
to find a tenant, how to
Yeah,
screen a tenant,
yeah, how much can I rent this
how
property
much will this
for?
property rent for? Yeah,
Yeah.
you're exactly right. And so that's if PMs are looking for content ideas, like that's where we start at. Answer the questions they're asking. Here's what most PMs I think get wrong. I bet you see this a lot.
Hmm.
When they think content, we think, oh, okay, I need to go in and put some content and tell everybody how great I am.
How
I
long
need
I've been in
how long I've been
business.
in business, how my software is industry leading. And we
Hmm.
have a website that is really good and you can trust us. We manage your property like it's our own. I mean,
Hmm.
all these just trite phrases and things that don't differentiate yourself at all and aren't educational and they don't build trust
No, because
whatsoever.
anyone says that. You know how you can drive by, a town, then you'll see like number one pizza place, number one yogurt place, whatever. And whenever I see those signs like voted number one, whatever pizza place, I
Yes,
always tell my husband, who's the authority?
exactly.
Who's like saying these are this number one, like number one where, like number one
Yep.
in the block, number one in the city, in the country. And it's kind of like that when you're just talking about, hey, we've been in business this long, like this is how great we are. First of all, anyone can say they're great. And then second of all, it doesn't mean anything to your prospect because the prospect is out there with a problem, whether it's conscious or an unconscious problem, and they're just looking to solve the problem, right? So if I'm like, oh my goodness, I just inherited this property and I have no idea what to do. Should I sell it? Should I rent it? If I rent it, how can how can I rent it? What about repairs? I have all these questions in my head. I just want to
All
solve
these
it. I go to
questions.
Google and then all I see is like, I am so great. I've been in business for 50 years. We have been, here at three-generation property managers, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, I don't know how that's going to solve my problem. Next, right? So you
Exactly.
have to appeal um to basically the prospect's life and their needs, right? It's like
Yes.
um I think Your Brand Story is that book that talks about like the hero of the story of your customer is the customer, right? So they go through their life thinking like, basically they're the focus of the story of their life, like, okay, I hit challenges, but I survived them, but it's all like first person. And so when businesses come and they try to offer like solutions, like, hey, I know you have this problem, I can solve it. You have to use verbiage to make it plainly obvious to that owner that this is why I'm the solution. This is how I can help you solve your problem versus I am so great, you should hire me. It's more of like, hey, I noticed you have this problem. I think I can help you fix it, and this is how, right? And then what that does is the owner is still the hero of their story, right? But then you're just like helping them. You're like the sidekick that kind of helps
Mhm.
them achieve their life's desires versus if you barge in being like, oh, I'm the hero, I'm Superman. It's kind of like, okay, well, I have my own journey. You do you, I do me. So you kind of have to understand the journey that your owner is going through and then figure out how you can serve them. I think that's a big concept that people have to adopt when they're thinking about content. It's all about serving, not showing off.
Okay, so if I'm going to serve them with my content, to go back to the things you just talked about, they're looking for an answer to their problem, and they come across the one property manager in the market who did a content piece, and I want to hear from you also on like
Hmm.
how to do that. But someone did a content piece on how to find a good tenant, or how
Hmm.
to evict a non-paying tenant, or how to self-manage your property, or how to prospect an applicant, whatever it is that they're looking for. And so that's what they click on, right? They don't click
Yeah.
on the we're the best. They click on
Hmm.
the here's how to find a tenant because they think,
Yeah.
oh, that's what I need. And so they start looking at this content and it's helping them, it's educating them.
Hmm.
And then they get to the end and they're like, oh, this was by Mark at Grace Management. They
Hmm.
talked about how to do this. So now we've established some trust there. Now they see that I'm not just there telling them how great I am.
Hmm.
I'm there to help them solve their own problems,
Yeah.
whatever they are. So this is where potentially I think PMs can look at that and say, well, I don't have time to
Hmm.
go out and like content. What does that mean? Does it mean I sit down and I write a blog post? Does it mean I record a video? And maybe I could just use AI. I'll just tell AI to write me an article in 100 words or 500 words on how to find a good tenant. What is your thoughts on that? Because that's what I see a lot of folks doing now is, well, this is AI is the answer to my
Hmm.
problem because I don't have time to write that stuff. Can I just have AI do it for me?
Yeah, and I don't blame them, right? Because AI, well, specifically generative AI, right, is so what's the right word to use? It's so deceptively awesome, right? And I say deceptive because
Deceptively awesome.
when I first discovered ChatGPT, it was like the early iterations of it, and I didn't even at first I didn't realize its applications to marketing because I first started hearing about it through developer circles. I have friends who are developers, right? And at first they were like, oh my goodness, like it cuts down my coding time to half. It's insane. Like it can debug my code, in half the time than doing it manually. And and then there were like some anecdotal, like, yeah, and then some people use it to write poetry and like funny little things and it can copy your personas. And I just thought like it's a cool little tool. And then I just started asking it, like, write a blog for a property management company based in Colorado about rent control. And it spit out this whole thing. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So the next day, I called a company meeting and I'm like, the end is near, like they have invented the thing that will make us obsolete. Um, and then what ended up happening was I dove in. I was like, if it's gonna kill the marketing industry, I want to know how and how soon and how can I adapt? Like, can I use this to make a better content, right? And so when I dug in, I realized one piece of information, as impressive as it may be, that you can type in a prompt and it gives you like a blog. If you actually read the blog, it's not good. And in fact, in my panic to kind of like understand, how worried I should be about my job, I attended the very first generative AI conference. Um, Was it last year? But the very first generative AI conference happened to be in my backyard, San Francisco. So I attended. I was just like, not going to be afraid. I just want to learn about the technology, how they're making it, what's the logic behind it. The biggest takeaway I had from that conference was that these Gen AI chatbots like ChatGPT, they're basically word calculators, right? So they inherently basically like studied how humans, what humans like, how humans write. And they basically like read most of the internet to kind of get like the voice, and that's why they can copy different personas. But at the end of the day, these tools try to predict the words that the human will like. So if I say, "Hey, can you write a blog about rent control in Colorado?" It goes to its vast its vast library of past blogs it's read, and it tries to piece together words that it thinks would just satisfy what I'm asking for, right? And so what does that do? You end up with just an okay blog. But we are no longer in the year 2000. We're not in the 90s anymore. We're no longer in a place where only a select few people are getting websites, doing blogs. I would say like, 10, 15 years ago, um, just having an okay blog on a website was enough to get you noticed. But now it's like everyone has a website, everyone has, you know, words on their website, everyone has a blog that if you just do kind of like a mediocre blog that like AI spits out, it's not really going to serve you, right? So, okay, you spent 5 minutes creating the blogs, but then it's never going to see the light of day. Like owners are not going to read it. So like you just wasted the 5 minutes anyway. Um, and so I would say that the way to effectively use AI isn't like a magic bullet where you expect it to just make all your content for you. Like you still need to have the human touch. So what I've found is successful is to use AI more like a sounding board or a starting off point, right? So in trying to write content, I think people fail to realize that it's not about the words on the page, it's not about the word count, it's not about like how many times did I mention property management or my area in the blog. It's more about the seed of the idea. And it's because when people are looking for solutions to their problems, like yes, they're trying to educate themselves. Like so an owner happens upon that blog, I'm looking for how to rent my property. They find a blog that talks about how to rent my property. If it's just like a plain blog that, like you generate out of AI, maybe it's going to give them information. But if it didn't impress them, if it didn't make them feel anything, they're likely not going to even remember where they read it from. But if your piece was able to make an impression, it's like, okay, gave me a really good idea, how to think about my problem. It also offered me different solutions, and it even gave me like real life stories, right? To bring more color to how to understand my problem. Then you're making an impression like, oh my goodness, who wrote this? Oh my God, Mark knows his stuff. He's not just like Googling, like, what is rent control? This is rent control by, it's like, hey, this is rent control. And, there are two different camps. Like this is what this camp says. This is what the other camp says. This is what my professional opinion is based on my 30 years of experience managing properties for other people. This is my experience, having rented earlier in my life. And when you add these personal touches, these personal stories, that is how you gain trust and credibility. Because that's what these tools cannot give you. The credibility and authenticity, they can give you the words, but if it's lacking the authenticity, it's lacking the personal touch, you're just gonna get lost in this big tidal wave of subpar content that people are just, generating from AI. Um, so yeah, I'm sorry if I took a long turn to answer the question, but I hope that was helpful.
That was incredibly helpful. I want to take what you said there in
Hmm.
those couple minutes, and I want to plug that into AI and have
Hmm.
it respit it back out and see
Hmm.
if it changes it.
Yeah, and honestly, that's how I use AI. So
Yes.
sometimes when when I have writer's block, it's not that I don't have ideas, period. It's that I don't think I have any good ideas left. But my brain's like, I have no ideas. And the reason I'm confident in saying that is because in the past, I would say, oh my goodness, the well is dried up. I don't have any ideas anymore for what to create for content. And then I start talking to team members. And then, I start writing stuff. And then slowly but surely things start like connecting. And then I kind of see, have this moment of clarity like, oh my goodness, yes, you've talked about rent control a million times, but, I remember this one time this particular thing happened and I can focus it on that. Like I have not talked about that aspect yet, or even in marketing, like you were asking me like, hey, maybe you could talk about how to attract owner leads. I'm like, I've covered that so much in my previous blogs and my industry talks, but like, there's always a new angle. But typically it would take a lot of time to kind of ruminate through all the different ways you can present a certain topic. But with AI, it can make it faster because I can literally just start typing on the air like, hey, I've written extensively about this particular topic and like I'm looking for fresh ideas. And then I tell it what ideas I have. Like I was kind of thinking of doing a piece about this topic um and focusing on this like one experience. And I literally just like word vomit like the experience. Like this is literally what happened, like I read this, I did that, then this happened, then this happened. It doesn't have to be cohesive in your head. It doesn't have to be blog ready. You're just blabbing to the chatbot. And then, you know, and then I ask it like, hey, like, how can I structure the blog given all these random information? And then what it's going to do is it's going to suggest a bunch of stuff that 95% is like not usable. But then it's up to you, the human, to find that like grain of inspiration, right? Sometimes it's like a full kind of like idea that I'm able to be like, oh my goodness, yes, this angle. But then sometimes it's literally a phrase, right? Like I spoke at NARPM National 20, what year is it? 2023. NARPM National 2023. And it was about marketing and how to attract owner leads. And it's like the tried and true topic, so much content that have been put out by Fourandhalf and by myself out there. And so I was looking for a way to make it exciting again, right? Because I refuse to believe that everyone has read every single piece of content out there about owner leads, but I also don't want to make it boring to the people who have already watched my previous talks or have already seen my blogs. And so I went to ChatGPT because I felt like I have no more good ideas on how to make this topic exciting again. And, I just, basically gave it the talks I've given before, the angles I've taken before. And then I had this idea of like, you know, it would it would really I think I wrote it in a post-it on my desk. I literally had this idea that I wasn't sure what to do with. It's still here from 2023. I did not clean my desk. Doesn't matter how good you are. Because if you don't get discovered, guess what? Nobody will ever know you existed in the first place. I
Hmm.
literally wrote that down in a post-it. Yeah, you can't read it, but I literally wrote that in a post-it. Been on my desk for the longest time, and I didn't know what to do with it. It was just like literally a passing thought, and then I just like put it on ChatGPT. Oh, and there's this throwaway thought, and then it was like suggesting like, what if you make a talk about how property managers start off invisible, kind of like a superhero. I was like, I really like that. And then I started kind of leaning onto it, like invisible superhero. And then, you know, so many iterations later, I ended up with a talk that I called From Invisible to Irresistible: How to Get Owners to Find, Like, and Hire You.
Hmm.
And it's like, I would have probably come up with that eventually over a course of a few days. But with the help of ChatGPT, I was able to come up with that within one business day.
That's
So it's
interesting.
like, I didn't just let the AI take the reins and be like, this is your talk, now present it. I collaborated with it. And I find that I do my best work when I use AI as a companion rather than as the driver, right? It's like it helps shorten those iterations that I would do anyway. But I'm still on the driver's seat. And so for property managers listening to this episode, I implore you to think of it as the um as a tool, right? And just like any tool, you have to know how to use it, right? Because a tool can be all great, but if you don't know how to use it properly, it's not going to serve you, right?
That's
It's
good.
just a tool you pay for.
That's a tool. Yeah. So, a couple comments on some things that you said there that I would be curious to go a little bit deeper on. Um, One thing that you keyed on, which I think is super important for PMs to realize, is that if you're not going to be doing any content creation, you're just like, nope, I've got my website, I'm not touching it. Then fine, go have AI create a post on how to evict a bad tenant, how to find a tenant,
Hmm.
whatever. Put it up on your site. But recognize that what that's going to be is not personal. It's not going to be of the highest quality.
It's
It
not really going to give you the leads. It's
it's
like,
not going to give you the leads, right? It's because all it is AI is taking a bunch of other information it found on the internet and it's coalescing it around one topic, which is fine. Okay, fine, do that. But then what Mark is thinking is, okay, my competitors are doing this, so how am I going to compete and
hmm.
differentiate myself from AI? That's the question I'm asking myself, and that's what I think PMs should be asking. How am I going to compete against AI? And I don't think it's that scary of a thing. I really don't, because I view it as the idea that AI is a very low bar.
Hmm.
It's coalescing around the common wisdom it found on this topic on the internet, which I believe is typically stupid. Right? I mean, it's
Yes.
taking all of what everybody else thinks, and as
Yes.
most of us know, what everybody else thinks is usually wrong or just
Hmm.
goofy, or I guess we can call it stupid. So, how are you going to differentiate yourself? And something you said there is giving your professional opinion, right?
Hmm.
AI is never going to give a professional opinion.
It's not a
It's
property manager.
that's right. It's going to say, here are the 7 steps to
Hmm.
evict a tenant that it found in some blog, and maybe they're right, maybe they're not. But it's not going to say, here's how you need to think about it. Here's our recommendation as a
Hmm.
professional company. That's how I think we can compete against this. That's certainly how we're competing against it. When we can give some information and say, so when this happens, here are some best practices that we recommend you follow. AI can't do that. And really, when we're giving those recommendations, that's what AI, when it searches all this stuff, that's what it wants to see. Like it wants to see what the experts have to say about it. So that's why from my perspective, and maybe I'm just naive, but I'm really not afraid of it competing against us because it can't bring any wisdom to the table. It can't compete against our professionalism. And it can't even try to compete against our professional opinion, as you said.
Yes.
So that's what I keep in air quotes, and I hope PMs keep in air quotes, that idea that what you need to be putting onto your content is your professional opinion on
And I
things.
actually want to piggyback on that. I feel like another big question in the advent of AI is like, oh, is it going to give me an edge SEO wise, right? Like if I use AI, am I better off? Or I think the more common thing is like, oh no, if I don't jump on the AI train, I'm going to fall behind. If I don't use AI to create content or whatever, I am not going to rank, right? And I just want to dispel those myths out the way. Um, as early as like January 20, no, yeah, February 2023, like, or even earlier, Google has said like they don't care whether AI made the content or not. In fact, um, Google put out a number of core algorithm updates last year and this year. The most recent one, literally 2 days ago, November 11th, as of recording this. And the core updates that they've put out basically say that their algorithm is going to prioritize helpful content, helpful, useful, authentic content. And their stance on AI is they don't care. They have absolutely no care how a piece of content is created, as long as the end result is truthful, authentic,
And that's
trustworthy,
the key word, authentic, right?
authentic.
Because AI can't be authentic. Like all it's doing is taking a bunch of other information and coalescing it together. It's the antithesis of authentic.
Exactly. And that's so interesting because I spoke at Cal Narpam back in March, and I gave a talk about the most recent SEO updates. And after my talk, someone came over and wanted to ask me some questions. And one question really struck me. And he said, you talk about, how Google doesn't really care about AI, but they really value authenticity and originality. What tool do you use to check the originality of your content? They were like, do you use originality.ai? And I'm just like, can you hear
Someone
yourself?
really
It's
said that to
like,
you? That's
yeah, yeah.
hilarious.
Someone really said that to me, and I'm just like, you're thinking of it wrong. Because if you're thinking about, oh, what tool should I run my content through to make it to get a specific score of like X% AI generated, X% authentic, and I'm like, did you listen to my talk? It's like literally Google has gone out and said, we don't care how content is generated. We only care about the end result. So the metaphor that I actually just thought of this morning was when you're asked to bring a dish, maybe a cake. You're asked to bring a cake to a potluck, right? So you can either slave away in your kitchen all day, making it from scratch, every single little thing from scratch, or you could maybe buy it from a restaurant or a store or a grocery store, right? So when you show up with a homemade dish, people are gonna be like, oh my goodness, how'd you find the time? That's so amazing. But then you show up with like a store bought cake, people are like, oh my goodness, store-bought cake, didn't even bother, right? But guess what? Even if you spend 10 hours cooking that awesome, awesome cake or whatever dish it is, homemade organic ingredients, if it tastes bad, if it tastes like crap, it tastes like crap. Versus, if you went to the store, you bought something and it tastes good, it tastes good. So I like to use that analogy for, content because Google doesn't care if your cake is store-bought or homemade or a mix of both. It could have been a mix, right? A cake mix that you whipped up in your kitchen, and maybe the instructions say add water and you added milk and then you added nutmeg and you just personalize it yourself, right? So if the end result is delicious and people appreciate it and would want more to eat it again, maybe have a second helping, then you are successful. Right? So it's kind of like people are focusing on the wrong thing. People are focusing on the how versus the what. And so in that analogy, I would implore property managers to do a cake mix and personalizing the cake mix instead of just buying a store-bought cake and not even taste testing it. You're just like, here's your cake. Good luck. Or slaving away in the kitchen. Like, mind you, there are people who absolutely love to write, right? Like they happen to be in property management, but they love to write everything themselves. Like you, Mark, you like to come up with the ideas yourself. You like planning out your content, and you just like, you record your candid thoughts about like that topic at hand. And that's great because the end result is what we're looking for. Your end result is great. But then you have a lot of property managers who maybe are camera shy, maybe they don't enjoy the process of creating content. So why would they create it from scratch? Buy a cake mix. Maybe add your own spices, maybe make your own frosting. You don't have to reinvent, you don't have to start from scratch to end up with something delicious. But I would say, yeah, I don't know if the analogy holds up, but I
It's a
hope.
pretty good analogy. It's pretty good. Cake mix to a property management, marketing, and AI. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a stretch, Marie, but I can connect those dots. So let me ask you this, because if PMs are like, well, okay, I need to do this, I get it. Give me a couple very, very specific action items for the property managers that are listening right now. If they're not doing any content at all, what specifically, like what should they do tomorrow, and what should they have done by next week? Very specific to start down that content creation path.
So the very first thing they have to do is, I would say, go through their emails, right? And see what owners are asking, right? If it's not you who's talking to the prospective owners, go talk to whoever in your office, um, talk to the prospective owners and see what questions they ask, what problems they keep bringing up, um, and then list them down, right? And then once you have that short list of topics that prospective owners are talking about, are interested in, um, or are expressing, then you start thinking about like, do I have personal stories related to these topics, or do I have people in my office who have personally dealt with similar issues, right?
Okay, so we got the topic, and they're going to address it through a story. Should they
Mhm.
do it in video or in written blog?
So I would say you can start with written blog if video is too much for you, right? Because since like at Fourandhalf, like we help property managers create the content, and we always say video is more powerful than written because when people see you, there's an extra layer of credibility. And then
Yep.
they start feeling like they have a face. um they have the face they're getting to know. It's not just this like faceless corporate company name that doesn't care about them. It's a person. They start feeling positive associations, like, oh, I can just talk to Mark, right? um but if that becomes your excuse to not create content at all, then that's not okay. So if you're comfortable trying video, I would say video.
I agree.
And if you absolutely cannot do video, like some people are self-conscious, whatever, but if that's the only thing holding you back, then I would say then go the written route, right? And then you can always start with written, and then maybe a couple months down the line, you gain your confidence and maybe you record a video to accompany that text. But at least you get started somewhere, right? So
Yes.
I feel like the enemy is inaction, right? It's so easy to just say, oh, easy for Mark to do because, he's so great in camera and da 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 da. But, I am not great in camera. But, like, guess what? You started somewhere. Same with me. I started somewhere. Like when I started working at Fourandhalf, I couldn't imagine being on video. But look at me now. I've been doing this for 10 years. So that's what you see, the product of 10 years of just pushing myself. But everyone starts from somewhere, right?
And if someone doesn't want to engage at all, like this,
Mhm.
they're listening and thinking, well, this is just way beyond me. That's where you guys at Four and Half can come in, to where
Yeah.
you're not just going to give them AI generated content, because you guys
Mhm.
create content. So PM's like, I
Yeah.
don't have time. I just want to have someone do this for me. That's where you guys originated from, that idea of, okay, we can do this for you. And I think that's
Hmm.
the key. If a property manager is going to hire a marketing company, any marketing company, one of the first questions they should ask is, okay, this content you're giving me, are you using AI to create this? Because if so, why would I pay someone else just to use AI when I could use AI anyway? Like, it defeats the
Hmm.
entire purpose. So what you guys do on your side of things is, you're, to go back to that original word, right? You're creating
Hmm.
original organic content on behalf of property managers.
Yeah, and it's a collaborative process. So we encourage property managers to collaborate with us to get those unique, authentic, original stories out there, right? Because
Mhm.
let's face it, there are people who think they could just throw money at marketing content. They're like, okay, here's money, just make me content. And we're like, we can try to personalize it based on how we understand your business, but it's like, we're not the boots on the ground in your market. Like, we cannot offer those like original stories, right? Like, so, what we've been trying to do is just getting you or whoever team member has the stories on the phone and just like getting those stories, you know,
Yes, and I've seen how you guys do it. You guys do a great job of that because you're 100% right. If I wanted to use you guys, you don't just say, "Okay, Mark, write us a check and we'll see what we can do." It's going to require some effort of me, which it should, because
yes.
you want to make the content specific to me. You want to draw. You're going to ask me the questions, draw out my stories, help me create the videos, help me create those things. So you guys are almost like a director
Yeah,
of
it's so
a
interesting you
movie
say
director almost.
that. Yeah, because I remember the last time I helped a property manager film content. So like they happened to be a local client of ours. So drove up to their office, and then we had planned for three team members to record their video. So I set up everything, and then during the filming, one of the property managers kept like messing up. Like he was like, I really want to say this, but it's not just not coming out. And he started getting really frustrated. It was like take three. He was like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not a blogger. I'm not a content creator. And I said, you are not a content creator. You're absolutely right. You're not a blogger. And you don't have to be. All I'm asking is you talk about what you do day in and day out, what you've been doing for the past 20 years, and that's property management. I happen to just be here with a camera to capture it.
It's good.
And then his shoulders just like relaxed.
Mhm.
And I say, just look at me. I'm behind the camera. I'm like, just look at me, talk to me. And then he just started talking. And that was the best take. And
That's
so,
great.
like, I think when we go online and we see these career content creators with the perfect lighting and, like you feel like they're all polished, we think I have to be like that to be able to put content out. But actually, you you don't have to be. Like you can just be you. You can just
Because
let your
people want
expertise.
authenticity, right? That's one thing we've heard is
Exactly.
people want authenticity. If you cross that line and you become too fake or too polished, then people view it like, oh, this isn't authentic. This isn't real. I don't trust this
Uh-huh.
person. Trust has to be authenticity. So that means if you're umming or ahhing a little bit and
That's
you're
okay.
it's okay because people see that you're real. I mean, like right now we're recording this. I'm at my home office. I've got this terrible light coming from behind me through my hair.
A
Marie, it makes me look
halo.
old. No, it makes me look like I have gray hair. I mean, very unprofessional. But you know what? We're not going to re-record because it's authentic.
Yeah. And that makes me think of oh, oh, I had something. See? Authentic.
Authentic,
Um,
and we're not going
oh,
to edit
right,
that out.
right. I remember when I forget how many years ago it was, like the our property management clients, like we would keep trying to get them to record videos, right? And one property manager from Florida had this brilliant idea, like, why don't I just hire a Fiverr actor? And so they basically had us work with them to create the scripts, and then they just like had us work with a Fiverr actor to get all the videos out. And you could tell it's an actor,
Yes, of
right?
course you can.
And so, but we're like, you know what? It's one thing to get this done. Like, yeah, it's informational because the script came, as a collaboration between you and us, and the information's good. But it's like you're not fooling anyone. That guy's not a
That's
property
right.
manager,
That's right. And they don't trust you because of it.
and they don't trust you. And then there was one point where they hired like a different actress to diversify it, and then some of the videos had like a lady who kept saying realty.
Oh, that's a
And
big mistake in this
and
world.
then they were just like, and we were just like, it's one like first of all, it's obvious that it's an actor, and second of all, they can't even pronounce like realtor. So it's like, yeah, you have videos on a website, but
But
you're kind of missing out on that additional benefit of authenticity, right?
so if
And
people want to know how you guys can help them do that, how do they get a hold of you?
yeah, so they can go to our website, Fourandhalf, Fourandhalf.com, or send an email to me, Marie, at fourandhalf.com. Be more than happy to direct you to our team members to talk about, like our process, because it's different, right, for each company. Each company has a different need, right? And we're very much a very like, let's tell us what your problems are, tell us what your goals are, tell us what your budget is. And then we'll kind of see what the best use of that budget is. Because sometimes people go to us and they just ask, like, how much should I spend on marketing? And we're like, oh, I wish there was a cookie cutter answer, but it really depends because it's your area, right? Like, people may have noticed, like, oh, why did Marie not mention pay per click? Well, it's because it's one of the most expensive ways to get owner leads, right? And, if you can shell out that money, great. But if you're really wanting to have more bang for your buck, and if you want marketing that's evergreen, that's going to continue giving you leads after you stop paying for it, that's where content is.
Marie with Fourandhalf, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I hope you found the discussion with Marc Cunningham useful. Again, we don't shy away from AI. We help property managers succeed, whether it's with your website, your SEO, content, may that be video or written content, right? We work with you to get the results that you need, right? So reach out to us if you need help, you have questions, Fourandhalf.com, Fourandhalf.com. As usual, if you are enjoying our podcast, consider subscribing or leaving us a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. Thank you for tuning in and see you next time.